Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of the Furry Valley podcast. Thank you for joining me and our guest. We hope you are having a great day and enjoy listening to our discussion. As always, we will be taking questions from our live audience. If any of you have questions, please put them in the podcast text chat, which you will find a couple of channels above the podcast voice chat that you are currently in. Today, we will be trialing a new style of podcast. Obviously, there are only a limited amount of furry-related topics, so we are curious to try branching out into something wider. In my real life, I have done a lot of self-help and self-improvement work with both ordinary and extraordinary people to help them achieve their dreams and to be the absolute best they can be. This is a topic I am eager to explore with you all as my furry family. Our guests in this series will be community members who feel that they have an idea of where they want to be, a dream, but they're not quite sure how to get there. The goal of each podcast will be to create a practical, actionable roadmap to start them with the first steps on their journey to achieving what they really want and are really capable of. Today, as our first guest in the series, I'm delighted to be joined by Kat, who is one of our Overwatch and design admins and recently passed her admin trial period with an excellent performance. How are you doing today, Kat?
Hi, Simba. I'm fine, I guess.
Good. You sound a little bit nervous.
I'm extremely nervous.
I promise you, once we get going, you'll get into it. It gets easier.
Let's hope.
For sure. It'd be nice. Obviously, as an admin, I know you quite a bit, but it'd be nice for our listeners to get to know a little bit more about you. Could you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Well, I'm 16 for one. I'm in high school, sophomore year. I play a few different video games, including Overwatch, World of Warcraft, and Warframe as my primary three. And I've spent how many years now? I think 5 years. Just practicing art and trying to work it to improve it, and try to convince other people, especially in the artistic fields, that hey, if you continue working towards another goal, especially in the art, like a lot of people say, hey, I can't draw, and that pisses me off because like I started off like, hey, I can't draw. I still say that about myself. But then I tell them, if you keep working, you can still get better. You can always improve.
Exactly. Yeah. That's cool. Thanks for introducing yourself. Now, I think what you've said there about artists in particular being negative about themselves, I don't think it's just people who are new to art. I get the impression that every furry artist I meet seems to think they're the worst furry artist ever. It's I don't know. I guess it sort of proliferates throughout all skill levels for some reason.
It's an artist thing.
An artist thing, not even a furry artist thing.
No, it's all artists. It's because when you're making the art, you notice every mistake that you do. You see every faulty line, every pixel off. Like you notice every little detail of your art. While some people who are looking at it don't notice those things, or they think that that's a part of the style. When the artist, like they have the image in their head and it doesn't turn out exactly how they wanted it to, and that's the whole reason why artists. Like psychology-wise, artists don't really like their art as much.
So it comes down to being sort of almost too familiar with your own work, because then you know exactly what you want and you can tell minuscule details of, not quite right. I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, as I mentioned, the purpose of this series is to figure out for guests the first steps to take to set them on the right path to achieving their dreams for real. So let's start by thinking about your goals, your dream, what you want to do, where you want to be. You mentioned to me before we went on air that you would love to be a character designer for Blizzard or a freelance artist with a business drawing things for people. Tell us a bit about your dream.
So I'm going to start with the Blizzard side of this. I've been playing Blizzard games for years now. I started like World of Warcraft. I started playing it back in I think 2008, 2009. As like a little kid, like on my parents' computer. So I've always been familiar with Blizzard. I've always loved their games, like the designs that they have. And when I got into art, I always thought, hey, I could work for them. I could design those characters. I could be the one creating these things that people play on every day, or like where the gear sets that everyone used. And then I got into Overwatch. I'm like, I could create characters. I could create skins. I could let my creativity just show the world, like, hey, I can look at this stuff that I like think up, and I can use it as cosmetic stuff. And I just love that thought of giving, like, creating more customization options for people.
So it's sort of you've experienced that kind of fun that's been provided to you by that company as you've been growing up through their games, and you want to kind of give that back to the next generation.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it.
Okay.
And
Do
then for
you?
the I was
I was
going to
just
go
going
into
to say,
the commission side.
do you feel that there's anything in particular about Blizzard that the way they do things in terms of character design is more appealing to you than a different company, say, a different game company?
I feel like Blizzard have not the same, but like sort of a similar graphic style towards every game. I've noticed, at least the ones that I've played, and they feel like they do feel like the same company. I'm
I see.
not. I don't play stuff from other companies very often, but I've noticed like there's a different feel to Blizzard. Like especially like World of Warcraft being as old as it is, you can feel the age, and I like how it wears the age that it has. It's kind of cool seeing like. Yeah, it looks old, but it also looks amazing. And when you see that game, you know it's World of Warcraft. And same thing with
Yeah.
Overwatch. If you see the Overwatch graphics, you know it's Overwatch. And I really like that sort of uniqueness of the graphics, that you can see it and know it.
So it sort of embraces its identity, even though it's quite old. It's proud of it, proud of its
Yes.
heritage, I suppose. Yeah, interesting, interesting. Yeah, tell us a bit about the other side of your dream then.
So commissions, it started off a while ago when I was a lot worse at drawing than I am now. I thought for a while, hey, I like, what if I could make money off of this? And like, what if I could actually do something? And then I got into this year of art block, which completely destroyed that dream for me. So I couldn't. There's a period of time where I couldn't draw. I had no creativity. I couldn't even write stuff. Like it was all gone for a year. And then you can see it on my old DeviantArt. And then I decided, like, hey, I've come back. I'm more of a different artist now, so I'm going to make a new account. And so now I sort of want to go back into commissions because I want that freedom that I would have. Like, I would love to be able to travel and stuff. And being a freelance, especially commissions, I could work on the commissions while like in a different country. It doesn't matter where I am, as long as I have my tablet and my stylus, I'm all good.
Yeah, it's like an online business sort of thing. You can live wherever, and as long as you've got a Wi-Fi connection and you're interesting. So let's think about sort of your overall goals. So it's sort of an encapsulation of art and design, one applied to game and graphic design, and the other applied to being a freelance artist and someone who takes commissions. So why do you want that?
Because I love art.
Your dream? Why do you love art?
It helped, for one, it just sort of connected to me. Like, I've always loved art in some capacity. And it also helped me through a very dark time in life. It was one of the few things that kept me motivated. It let me get out my creativity, and it let me show emotions that I couldn't speak.
So you feel that through your art, you're able to express yourself in a way that you can't necessarily do so verbally?
Yes.
And how does that make you feel?
I'm the type of person who bottles up all their emotions. So having this as an escape, but also like a less like obvious escape, makes
like
it
a relief
seem
almost.
Yeah. It's very relaxing most of the time.
Are there any other activities you do that you feel have the same kind of impact on your mental state and allow you to express yourself in this sort of way?
Playing violin.
Okay. So it's the same sort of creativity. You're kind of expressing yourself through, things you output. Do you compose?
I don't compose, but I'm taking classes to see if I can learn how to. Because it is very difficult.
Yeah, but I suppose it's a similar sort of underlying skill, isn't it? Though you're sort of creating something from nothing, and you've probably got a picture or like a melody in your head, and it's sort of constructing that. And I'm sure a musician, in the same way that you notice a one line slightly wrong, they probably notice the same thing, one note slightly wrong in what they're playing and such. Um, Sort of relating to what you said earlier on.
Mm.
Very interesting. So, one of the things I want to teach you tonight is a style of skill acquisition that, in one form or another, is what all expert performers across all fields use to become the best they can as efficiently as they can. Now, people tend to say that practice makes perfect, but the reality is, as we repeat an action, neural pathways in our brain become reinforced, and we become better and better at performing that particular action in that particular way. Which means that if we're doing something incorrectly, for example, we're getting a certain line wrong or one pixel is a little bit off, you actually are going to get better at performing that action incorrectly if you just sort of blindly practice over and over. So, the key takeaway from that is that practice doesn't make perfect like people seem to claim. Practice makes permanent. So what can we do differently? And the method sort of goes like this. So the first two steps are setting proper goals. So in your case, you've got the goals, the aspirations, the dream of what you want to become, something to work towards. And staying focused and motivated. That's sort of the second step. Obviously, without focus, without motivation, you won't be practicing in any way, be it the correct way or not, and so you won't really be improving. Now, properly and efficiently training is difficult work. It requires a lot of conscious effort and focus, so it's important to pace yourself and not get burnt out and such. I know you mentioned you had the art block and such before, so being careful to avoid that sort of thing is obviously very important. The actual mechanics by which we practice in this way is we take a skill and we break it down into its components, its fundamentals, they're called. Once you have done that, training exercises are drilled on each individual smaller component, with each exercise specifically designed to be beyond your current skill level. Not massively beyond, but it has to be challenging. It has to be something that you can't easily do and you're going to make mistakes on. After each exercise, or each set of exercises, you must analyze. Or if you find it difficult to analyze your own work, you might want to have someone who's a little bit better than you look at your work with you and help you analyze what you've produced. And then actively correct things that you find in your analysis. If you spot that a line is off, then notice that you've done it, and don't be critical to yourself. Sort of notice it and just be present with it, and then correct it and work on that consciously. Once you've drilled each component, each fundamental piece of the overall skill that you wish to improve on, you then integrate the components back together to create the overall skill again. What are your sort of first thoughts on first hearing that style of learning?
I instantly think of how I can take apart my art and practice each individual skill.
Good.
So, like, first of all, I have trouble depicting motion. So what
Mhm.
I'd probably do is I'd probably do a lot of like stick figure-esque sketches trying to show motion, and then probably try to build off of that to add the other skills to that same motion
Yeah.
drawing, just right off the top of my head. First thing I think
Yeah,
of.
excellent. That's perfect. What I've sort of got next in plan of what to do is let's think about the overall components and fundamentals that we can break art and design down into. Like, let's make a list. You've mentioned motion there. What other sorts of? I mean, I'm not an artist. You're going to have to help me out. So what fundamental components are there of art and design as a skill? What building
Um,
blocks make up the overall skill?
there you have to know how to select colors, like what colors look good together, which is
Yep.
color theory.
Yep.
You have to know what style, like the line work, I guess, in a way,
Yep.
like the yeah. I'm suck at describing that.
No, that's fine.
Um, Shading and highlighting. That's a for a character. Does like the type of art that I specifically do. That's a big one.
Hmm.
Um, if I'm designing characters like adopts and stuff, patterns are important.
Yeah.
What colors like look good next to each other, which goes back to color theory again.
Yeah, so you've got things like the line art. I suppose you've got the texture, which is built up from things like shading and things. You've got the overall shape, the sort of space and perspective of the piece, the color theory you mentioned, form, anatomy, so forth.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you find motion quite difficult. Are there any of the others that you find particularly difficult?
Positioning I find difficult in different poses.
Is
Um,
that positioning one piece relative to another in terms of perspective or positioning?
perspective, yeah, and like just general like not doing like face head forward or looking to the sides.
Right.
I've
So
been practicing that one a lot recently,
I mean,
actually.
yeah, you're on the emoji project, aren't you? So I love. For those of you who don't know, Kat is a part of our design team and is working on a custom emoji project for our Discord currently. So we're having custom emojis made of about 25 different species. Kat's done a few of them, and they look excellent. They're going to be probably going live in early April. So you'll all get to see the wonderful work that Kat and our other artists have done. Super excited, super hyped to release that to you all. So let's go back and just think about those fundamentals. So you mentioned motion straight off. Let's try to construct an exercise that focuses on motion as a component and will enable you to drill the exercise, say 5 or 10 times, trying to do this thing, and then consciously analyze what you've done. So what would be a good exercise to do that's slightly beyond your current skill level, but not too far beyond that it'll demotivate you?
Probably a simple running animation.
Okay, so
That way each
particularly
frame that
okay.
way each frame I can analyze like each step, like this probably is not the best. Let's go to the next frame and see if I can make these
Yeah,
things better. And that way like you're still moving on, but every frame is also different, but you can also see exactly what's wrong in the last frame and you can see your improvement through the actual
yeah,
animation.
yeah. That sounds really good. So you could do, for example, spend half an hour on animating, I don't know, a guy running in 10 or 12 frames or something, and then try it again the next day. It's not the sort of thing you want to do for hours and hours and hours because, as I mentioned, it does require a lot of focus. But yeah, I like that because you can see the sort of incremental improvement within each frame, but also day to day. If you do the same running animation, the same frames, say each day for a week, then if you look at each frame from the end of the week compared to how each frame was at the start of the week, not only will you see the progress within each animation, but you'll see the progress between respective frames that correlate with each other at the end and start of the week. That's a really good exercise. I like that. Yeah, cool. Try that. That sounds really
I
good. I
will.
like that idea. Which is much more general, but still intimately related to your dream, is self-confidence. As an artist, whether you want to work at Blizzard or for yourself as a freelancer, to present yourself and your work in the best way possible is absolutely essential. And many furry artists, and indeed you said many artists in general, and I think indeed people in general, beat themselves up excessively and denigrate their own work. So let's think, much as we viewed art and design as a skill, let's now view self-confidence as a skill. Break down self-confidence into its components. What sort of building blocks make self-confidence? It's a little bit more difficult because it's an abstract skill, but you can still do the same sort of process to it.
Not hating on yourself constantly. I don't
Yeah,
know, honestly.
certainly self-love is one of the fundamentals. I would say positive thinking, knowledge. If you've got more knowledge, you're going to be more self-confident, knowledge and expertise. Self-understanding. If you understand yourself, you understand your psyche, your mental health, your state of being, you will be more self-confident because you'll be able to explain things and you won't be anxious of the unknown and such. And I think self-acceptance is also a big thing. If you accept yourself, then you'll be more comfortable with yourself, which will, of course, lead you to more self-confidence as well. Now,
Yeah.
you told me off air that you have issues with self-hate and self-loathing. So I think let's reframe that and let's address self-love as a fundamental. A good exercise, a staple exercise for this is positive self-talk. By use of positive affirmations on a regular basis, and that basically means phrases that are positive about yourself, science has shown that whether or not you believe what you say, and indeed when people start doing this, they don't tend to believe what they say, it actually has a measurable and positive impact on your level of self-love. Your brain almost gets tricked into believing it when it hears it, when you say it, regardless of whether you think you believe it consciously. So I want you to try this with me a little bit here and repeat after me, even if it's hard or feels a bit weird or uncomfortable, just go with it. So,
Oh boy.
okay, let's go. I am a valuable person and I love myself.
Okay. I am a valuable person and I love myself.
I am a talented artist and my work is great.
I am a talented artist and my work is great.
I treat myself kindly because I deserve it.
I treat myself kindly because I deserve it.
Now, how does that feel?
Really awkward and
It
really...
feels really awkward and weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
This has always felt a little bit odd to me, but really, honestly, the science does show that this sort of stuff works. And the more times you do it, whether it's looking at yourself in the mirror and doing it, or whether it's going on YouTube, finding self-affirmation, positive affirmation videos and doing it, it does help, and it does become a little less awkward. And of course, we're talking here in front of people. Yeah, if you're in your own room, no one's going to hear you saying this stuff.
It's even worse because there's so many people and I don't want to sound like a narcissist.
Well, there's a difference between arrogance and self-love and self-confidence. When you're a self-confident person, you love yourself because of your own good qualities, and the difference between that and arrogance is you're an arrogant person if you are saying, well, I'm good because I'm better than you, rather than I'm good because I have good qualities about myself. So it's subtle, but there's a certain difference there. So it's not narcissistic to love yourself. It's narcissistic to love yourself in the frame of reference comparing to someone else, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Cool. So let's just pause for a minute and step back. Do you have any questions about anything we discussed today at this point?
No,
You're good?
I think I'm good.
Good. See, we got through it. Awesome. We're going to be talking with the audience next. So well done. Excellent. Do you feel less nervous now?
Eh,
Well, you made it. Good job.
I did.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Kat, for spending time with me today as our guest. We've taken the first practical steps together towards reaching your dream. Please keep going. Never give up on yourself or your dream.
Thank you, Simba.
You're very welcome. Now, let's take a look at some of the questions from our audience. So Cinderstars asks, what are ways to gain positive publicity, particularly in terms of promoting her art? She says she gets not much follower activity on almost all social platforms. First off, I want to plug Cinderstars. Cinderstars made our mascot, which we've recently announced. If you don't follow Cinderstars on Fur Affinity, check out our announcements chat on Discord. Go and follow her. Go and commission her. Fantastic. Love it. Definitely make sure you go and do that. We'll put a link in the video description as well. Overall, though, in terms of gaining positive publicity as an artist, or indeed anyone sort of a freelance person with a business selling a product, I think it comes to putting yourself in front of the correct people. So if you want to have more sales, you need to look at who are the commissioners. And if you know people who commission lots of art and they have a lot of followers because they commission lots of art, and you might want to get to know them and say, hey, I notice you commission a lot of art. I'm an artist who does commissions. would you like to commission something from me? And it's quite a bold, almost in your face sort of approach, but sales is sales is something which you often require to be bold for. You can't be a passive car salesman. The person who sells the most cars in the showroom isn't the one who stands in the corner and waits for the customer to come to them. You have to go to them. So I think proactively going and seeking out people and presenting your case to them, and finding the right sorts of people. So not just going to anyone on the street and saying, hey, would you like to buy my car? Would you like to buy a new car? Look at your clients, look at the ones who are most likely to become your clients. Perhaps get referrals from friends and such, get referrals off people who you've done work for before, and yeah, take it from there. Do you have anything to add to that, Kat?
I feel like that is pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that sums up a lot.
Yeah, so it's all about a sort of push rather than a pull. You want to go and push yourself out there. Don't wait for people to come to you. Proactive rather than reactive. Okay, let's see. A more general question from St. Hugo for you, Kat. He asks, what kinds of things do commissioners do that make you uncomfortable, and what's the most effective method you've found for handling it?
I have gotten people tell me, like, you can't decline my commission. Like, I requested this, so you're going to do this. And I've also gotten it where people just flat out ask for requests, like, hey, I don't have any money. Can I get a free commission?
And how do you handle that?
Usually, if it's the first one, the former one, I'll just say, dude, it says in my rules that I do not accept all commissions and that I have the right to say no. If
Yeah.
you do not stop this, I will block you and you will not be able to commission me in the future at all.
Yeah.
And I talk very firmly. I'm like, I give them the rules. I stick to what I said there, because I put those down for my own protection as well as the protection of the people who I'm client commissioning, doing commissions for. Where it's for the latter. Oh, sorry, Simba.
No, go ahead.
And then for the latter, I just give them a flat out no. Say, no, I do need the money. This is like it's the only way I make money.
Yeah.
And I explain to them very strictly, like, I do not do free commissions or requests, as they're usually called, unless you're a close friend. And even then.
Yeah. It's a strange world in a lot of ways. I mean, the furry fandom and art commissions and such. As a business person myself, I cannot imagine any circumstance at least in any business I've run, where a client would come to me and sort of force me to, or at least attempt to force me to do business with them. It just doesn't happen in the real world. Very, very strange. I imagine that must be quite intimidating.
Annoying.
Yeah.
It's just annoying.
I guess some of them can be quite pushy. If they're like, I really want you to do that. Yeah, furries can be a bit weird sometimes.
No, this isn't just furries. Actually, all of both instances happened out of the furry fandom.
Really? Gosh.
Yep.
Fair enough. Huh. Sammy Booth asks, what program do you typically work with? What works well for you? And did you teach yourself the program? What made it click for you?
For my digital art, I use Autodesk Sketchbook. I've used it for years. And it's a very simple program. I'm pretty sure it has a desktop version, but I use it on mobile device, so I have a tablet. It also works on phones. It's a very simple program. The hardest part about it is learning where all the brushes are and figuring out like what settings do what in the advanced settings, and learning how to manipulate it to what you want. Like, I've personally changed a lot of brushes of my thing in order to get different effects that I want and make it look really nice. And yeah, I've been self-taught I've taught myself over the years, but I've also been using this for multiple years. But again, it's not that hard. It's also a completely free program, and it is very, very good. I do recommend it for anyone looking to get into art.
I was going to say, I think this is a good time to sort of point out that learning this program could be thought of as a skill, and you can break it down into fundamentals. What do I need to be able to be good at the overall program you want to be good at? the brush stuff you mentioned, and I'm sure there are other fundamentals you can split this program down into. If you learn how to use each of them effectively, then when you put them together again, you can use the whole thing much more effectively. So you can train yourself in learning a program just like learning any other skill.
Yeah, and then I also sometimes will use Photoshop, but that's more for like actual graphic design things that I've done and editing photos that I've taken. It's a lot. I am less familiar with it, but that's because I'm newer with it. But I have like done what Simba said, actually subconsciously, and just broken it down. Like, this is the brush stuff, this is the layers, and I always try to change my UI to the same thing. To try to keep your UIs consistent. I will tell you that it helps you familiarize yourself with the program a lot better. And like, even if you get yourself super familiar and you go to someone else's program and it's slightly different, you can still figure out where stuff is as long as you know what each toolbar does.
Yeah, it sort of becomes subconscious, and therefore you've got less conscious effort on where is this tool I want, instead of how do I use this tool, which is what you really want to be asking. Again, from Sammy Booth, how do you tackle your own image as an artist and work towards self-improvement within your field? I think we sort of covered the self-improvement bit, but how do you sort of manage your image as an artist?
I personally kind of let it work itself out. I just kind of draw what I feel like is right for the drawing. And I try my best, and I try to show the effort in every piece of work I do. That's my most important thing, is just to show that I've put in effort. Even if it's not my best piece, I still like to show, like, hey, I got this in there, or hey, like, it's still better than the last piece, or stuff. Like, I try to show a huge thing that I do with my DeviantArt is I show self-improvement, like comparisons. I've done 2-year comparisons, and I've done a once-a-year thing, which I need to finish the once-a-year one, actually, still. I can actually, if you give me a few seconds, I can actually put that in the podcast chat if you guys would like.
Sure, that would be excellent, yeah.
Open up my tablet.
We can also post a link to that on the video when we upload it.
I can give you a DeviantArt link to that.
Sure.
Or an Instagram, depending on which one you
want. Either's fine. So while you're finding that, Sammy Booth asks another question, which is, honestly, Sammy feels that routines work for certain people in certain situations. Who's to say it'll work for everyone? Now, I really want to encourage everyone to have a schedule. Whether or not it's a fixed daily routine will depend on the person. Some people's days are much more standardized and much more routine than others. But schedules help. Schedules absolutely help. And the goal of a schedule isn't to 100% meet what's on the schedule, to like do every single task on it at exactly the time that you're meant to do it and so forth. The goal is to simply meet, say, 30% of it. Because if your whole day is a mess and a shambles of just running around like a headless chicken trying to get everything done without any organization, then even meeting 30% of your day on a schedule is going to make you much more efficient. About a month ago, I designed a schedule with Blaze that we both would keep to for our days, and I specifically said at the top of this, look, if we hit 50% of this each day, we've done amazing. And while trying to keep to the schedule, my own productivity went through the roof. And part of it is about organization. It's all about, whether it's a routine or not, just making the most of what you've got on your schedule. Don't try and hit it 100% because you'll be disappointed, and if you're disappointed, you'll be demotivated and so forth. But just treat it like a guideline. Do as well as you can on it, but without too much pressure. Just reading a little further down now. So Excalibur asks, how do you know that trying something totally different from what others have tried will be met with a positive reception? And
sorry.
I think that the easy answer to this is you don't know, but why should you care? If you want to do something, you want to try something, then no one has any right to tell you not to do it or not to try it. if people don't like something, that's their choice not to like it. It doesn't mean that you have to choose not to do it or to opt not to do it. If you want to do something because you'd like to, go ahead and do it. So it comes down to sort of doing things because you want to, rather than because others might like it or not like it and such. And I guess that's, in terms of art and such, Kat, with your style, I'm sure you don't particularly care whether other people have tried your style before. It's it's yours, isn't it? You want to do it because
Yeah,
it's your yeah.
I don't care. And
Yeah.
quite frankly, I've had people not recognize my style because I've changed styles for drawings. I change. I'm very fluid with my artwork.
Yeah.
And I try to encourage people to be sort of fluid with what they do. Because if they have multiple styles, they can do multiple different things and make things look. They have different moods and feels. Specifically, that's art stuff.
And I think if people are being honest with themselves and how they're feeling in terms of their style when they produce their work, you can sort of feel that within a picture. Where if they're sort of faking and trying to match a style or a sort of template that doesn't encompass and encapsulate what they feel as a person, you can also notice that. And I think that's also true in people's writing that I've seen before. If someone's passionate about something, the way they express themselves, whether it's through written media or graphic media or music or whatever else, you can feel it. It's a subtle thing, a subconscious thing, but it's definitely there. Sammy says, what inspired you and led you to be where you are currently, Kat? In terms of your art.
I constantly am looking at other artists, seeing what they do, how I look at their technique, and really what's led me to where I am is just observing and then trying to put it into practice. And sometimes that goes epically wrong. That's fine. And sometimes it turns out to be a huge success with what I try. And it's always an experiment with art. I'm always trying new things in my art. Even now, I always like trying new styles, new texture things, and that's sort of like how I've gotten here and how I've improved as fast as I have. Is because I'm always trying new things.
Yeah.
And if they work, I continue using that new thing. And if it completely sucks, I either tell myself, hey, is there anything good about this? And if not, well, that's gone completely.
Yeah. That sort of fearlessness will set you well in life, whether it's to do with art or a business or anything else. If you're not afraid of what people think, what if this doesn't look good and people judge me? If you allow yourself the freedom to do it anyway, then you're going to discover things that work that you may not have discovered otherwise. That's a really good trait of yours. I like that.
I always know that I'm my hardest critic, and if other people try to insult me, hey, I already know that about myself. So you guys can go screw off.
Yeah, but in the same way, when it comes to inspiring yourself with self-confidence and keeping your motivation, it's important to not be hypercritical of yourself, because that can damage that too.
Yeah.
Sammy asks, do you wish to breathe new life into Blizzard if you go into their system? How would you surmount them? And if you do someday and find yourself at a point where you outgrow Blizzard, what would you do? Is that where you think you'd go into your other side of things as a freelance artist, or do you have any thoughts along that?
If I do get talking about your last question first, and then probably working backwards.
Mm-hmm.
If I do end up out performing Blizzard and outgrow it, I would probably split off and do my own thing, just so that way, because I want to do what benefits me most. And quite honestly, I would prefer to be a freelance artist, just because of the fact that I'd have a lot more freedom to do what I want. I'd have having that freedom is huge to me, because I hate even now I'm stuck in this one town in this one state.
Yeah.
I hate it here. I want to be able to do what I want, and I can't right now. So that's sort of where that whole I will go if I have the chance to sort of thing. And I would just continue trying to advertise art to do that. Just going to your second question. I would just try, I would do what I do. I would draw things, I would try to get commissions out, and I would try to get that side going while also working the Blizzard system. And I don't know how I would bring new life into Blizzard, but hopefully I could try to improve the design and in Overwatch, if I was going into that department, bring better skin design because some of them are really kind of bad. I would just try to get people to hopefully think more logically about what they put in the game, because I don't think they have that logic sometimes. No offense to Blizzard.
Game companies can be. I think illogical is a very kind way of saying it.
Yeah.
It's the worst when they're like, "Oh, hey, we have a gay character because marketing." I hate that stuff.
Yep.
So fake.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Quartz has an interesting question. Quartz asks, how do you manage bitterness or jealousy from an older artist seeing an artist like you who is young and is succeeding where the older artist is not? Have you ever
Or the other way around. Or the other way around, actually.
Yeah, or the other way around.
I've experienced both, actually. With the older artists being sort of bitter towards me, I kind of just ignore them and be like, or I tell them hey, maybe if you tried different things rather than sticking to the same thing that obviously isn't working,
yeah,
then you could probably also gain more success. Either that, or if they're acting really rude towards me, I just ignore them and go on with my life, because haters gonna hate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, never listen to anyone who says change who you are.
Yeah. And then when it comes to seeing younger artists, I have felt slightly jealous. One of my best friends, actually. But then I'm like, wait, she's my best friend. She's probably done a lot of work that I haven't seen. And I try to think about the process that she goes through. And every artist that I see like that. And I'm like, okay, you deserve this. I should have no reason to be this way. Go on, do your thing. And then I get into the mindset of support them with what they're doing and try to help them as well.
Quartz also asks, how do you keep a consistent audience as a creator?
I
suppose this comes down to your watchers and followers. They naturally will come back to your work, as part of the system on the website, I guess.
My Instagram especially, I'll point that one out. I've not had a consistent people following me, but that's because my style has changed so drastically, and there's a period of time where I didn't post a lot, so people don't recognize me sometimes, and they forget who I am, and so I've had that issue. But mostly the thing is, try to keep posting your art as regularly as possible. Try to keep stuff going, even if it's a once a week thing. It would still keep your followers oh, hey, I know this person, rather than who the hell is this person?
Yeah.
And that's sort of the problem that I've been having personally, is because I do go through small periods of art block, or this one large period for a year, which sucked. But
Sammy asks, by learning on your own, do you mean literally on your own, self-teaching directly, or watching videos to assist your learning? And if it's the latter, are there any creators of videos that you particularly like?
I've completely taught myself, honestly.
Okay.
I've taught some of this art skills specifically I've learned are from art teachers, and I do remember a lot of the things people say, even if I don't act like it. Some do remember. Sometimes it just takes a bit to put it into practice, but usually what I do again is I look at other people's art, flat images. I would take, let's take Blaze's icon for example, because Blaze is in here. I would take a look at his icon. I'd notice little things how the fur texture is, and notice all the little details, and then I'd be like, okay, how would I do that myself? And then I'd sort of try to mimic, but also add my own twist to it at the same time.
I see. So it's taking the base and then stylizing it and learning as you go by sort of combining the two almost? Interesting.
A year ago, I used to call it Frankensteining.
Oh, cool.
A clever little thing. I've gotten yelled at by so many people for admitting that I do that. But Oh, everyone does it. Every
If it
artist
helps you
who's
learn,
good.
then yeah, no reason not to.
I'm pretty sure like almost every artist at one point has done this,
Hmm.
and it's to help them improve. It's a completely natural thing.
Yeah.
You don't like. Let's take like building. You don't just learn how to build a house. You watch other people do it. Same thing with
Yeah.
art. You can't be afraid to look at other people's work and take skills off of that work.
Yeah. They
And
say.
I don't listen to the people who criticize you on that. If you ever want to do that, it pisses me off.
They say imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So if someone does imitate your work and learns from it, then that means they respect and they like your work a lot. Yeah, certainly not worth getting offended over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the audience questions for tonight. So thank you again to our wonderful guest, Kat, and thank you to our live audience, as well as everyone else who has either asked a question or is listening to this episode of the Furry Valley podcast on YouTube. For anyone who has not already done so, please subscribe to us on YouTube and like the videos on our channel. If you have an interest in being a guest on a future episode of the Furry Valley podcast, please react with a number 1 on the message that is being posted in the podcast channel now, or send a message to Simba on Discord. Thank you all.